Hello everyone, and welcome again to another video for biological topics. And the topic that we will going to discuss today is the nervous system. Alright, so what particular part of the nervous system? Mainly the end part, or the part that is scattered all around our body, which is called the peripheral nervous system. Okay, so we will not waste time anymore. Then we'll discover how the peripheral nervous system works, what are the parts, and what are the function on each and every component of this system. Alright, so let's go. Now, as you can see here, we have the brain that is connected to the spinal cord, then the spinal cord is connected to the nerves on different body parts. So, as we can see here, so the brain cannot function, or if the brain is isolated, it cannot do its function. Alright, just like a leader, if the leader is isolated, it becomes weird. Yeah, so it becomes weird that your leader is isolated. So it must need the help of these nerves on this side. Yeah. So in order to get some information to the environment, so meaning to say the brain's job is not to get some information to the environment, but to integrate this information to do appropriate actions based on that particular stimuli. Alright, so with that, let's move forward. Okay, so in this particular diagram that we have right here, we already discussed what is all about the central nervous system, and we agreed that it is composed of the brain and the spinal cord. So we have the central nervous system, so brain and the spinal cord. Okay, so today we will have the peripheral nervous system, the one that is facing the environment in order to get some stimuli and be able to be integrated by the central nervous system. As we all know, that the central nervous system integrates what the peripheral nervous system gathered, and then send some messages again to the peripheral nervous system to do appropriate action. Alright, so in this diagram, the peripheral nervous system is divided into two different divisions. So we have the sensory division, which is the afferent division, the motor division, which is also known as the efferent division. Now, when we talk about the sensory division, it includes all the five senses of the body. Alright, the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, right, then the skin. Yeah. So those are the sensory organs that are under the sensory division. And as we all know, that the sensory division is the one that gathers information from the environment due to some sensory neurons, which is very sensitive to every stimuli that the sense organ will encounter. For example, the eyes, the stimuli for the eyes is light. Nose is the chemicals or the odor of the food that we eat, or the odor of the chemical. Next one is the ears is the sound. Right, so the stimuli for the tongue is also the chemical from the food. And for the skin, we have many receptors, or we have many stimuli for the skin. We have the pressure, temperature, alright, so mechanical aspects of stimuli. Alright, so also in the peripheral nervous system, there is what they call motor division. So in this particular group, this group reacts and take effect on a certain information that is gathered by the sensory division, and also with the use or with the instruction coming from the central nervous system, the motor division will do its function. Most of the time, the motor neurons are always connected to muscles in our body, cardiac, smooth muscles, and other stuffs. Alright, so in the motor division, it is divided into two groups. All right, so we have the somatic nervous system, which controls the voluntary movement of the body, and we do have the autonomic nervous system, which controls the involuntary motion of the body. So mainly examples of involuntary motion or involuntary movements in the body, which is breathing, digestion, heart rate. All right, so those are some examples. All right, so also, with the somatic nervous system, it is another group which is called the autonomic nervous system. Yeah? So, it controls the involuntary. Now, in the autonomic nervous system, it is divided into two divisions, which is the sympathetic and parasympathetic division. Later, we will go over on that part to find out what is the difference between this division that we have right here. Alright, so let's move on. So, we will start first with the peripheral nervous system. Okay, so alright. Okay, so this is the central nervous system as we discussed. So this is the brain. So this is the brain, and the one below is the spinal cord. Right, so the spinal cord serves as the relay point between the bridge point between the brain and then the body parts. Right, so whatever instruction is relayed by the brain to the motor neurons is also the same pathway for the information that are gathered by the sensory neuron going back to the brain. So basically, the brain does the what they call integration part of the function of your nervous system. Okay, so with that, let's so with that, that's the central nervous system. So we go now to the peripheral nervous system. Now, what is the peripheral nervous system? Yeah, sorry for that. Peripheral nervous system. So what do we mean by that? So this is a group of, or this is the component of your nervous system that is responsible, or that is connected to the limbs and other organs in the lower extremities of the body, which is essential to, which serves as a relay between the brain and then the spinal cord. And also, this particular part of the nervous system connects other parts of the body to these two organs in your central nervous system. Alright, so basically, that's the function of your peripheral nervous system. This is the window of our body. This is the window of our body that connects our nervous system to the environment. Okay, so next one. Now, this is the comparison between central nervous system and then the peripheral nervous system. So, as you can see, all the nerves of your body is under the peripheral nervous system. Right, next one. Okay, if you combine them together, so there are a lot of nerves that are located in our body, from the hands, in the limbs, right? So the limbs, alright, so the foot that we have right here, yan. So everything or everywhere in our body is made up of nerves. Okay, so basically these nerves gather information in the surrounding, and it is integrated by the brain. Then eventually it will send out signals on how the motor neurons in these nerves will do its function. Okay, so that's the peripheral nervous system. All right, so in the first picture, that was the nerves that are connected in the spinal cord. So in this case, we do have also nerves that are connected in the brain. We called it cranial nerves. In the spinal cord, we called it spinal nerves. So these nerves are connected to the brain, and it performs the cranial reflex, as we all know. So there are a lot of nerves that are connected with the brain. So let's have an example. For example, let's have this one, which is called the vagus, which have the vagus nerve. So this nerve that we have right here is connected to the delicate organs of the body, which is the heart, the lungs, okay, that performs the involuntary movement, like the pumping motion of the heart, the exchange of gases in the lungs. All right, so the peristalsis in the digestive system. So one of those nerves is called the vagus nerve. All right, it controls the motor movement of these parts that we have right here. All right, next one is the nerves that is connected to the muscle of the eye. So yan, so it allows the eyes to move in different direction. All right, so there are nerves that are connected to the nose, to the alright, to the eye itself, the optic nerves. Yan. So we have also the facial nerves that are connected to the muscles in the face that performs muscular facial expressions. Alright. So next one, there's another one that controls the muscles in the tongue. So actually there are a lot of nerves that are connected in our or these nerves that we have right here is connected to the organs in the head part. Alright. So some of those are connected in the organs in the lower extremities, but most of them are connected in the organs near the head region of our body. Alright, so we called it the cranial nerves. The other one is called the spinal nerves. Alright, so alright, what makes peripheral nervous system different from central nervous system? Alright, so in this group, the nerves here are not protected by some sort of a bone or anything else, alright? So, or a fluid, something like that, like the cerebrospinal fluid that we have last time on the central nervous system. Instead, these particular nerves that are located in the peripheral nervous system is exposed to different aspects like toxins or chemicals. And also this part of the nervous system also exposed in mechanical injuries. They are meant to gather those mechanical aspect of those stimuli, the pressure, the temperature. All right, so which means that the peripheral nervous system, or the nerves in the peripheral nervous system, doesn't require any protection at all, because if they are protected, so how will these nerves do their particular function? All right, so next one. Alright, in the peripheral nervous system, especially in the body, it is composed mostly of sensory nerve receptors. Alright, so in the eyes, there is what they call the optic nerve. Alright, in the ears, we have the auditory nerve. In the nose, we have the olfactory nerve, which gathers stimuli from the odor of the food or anything about odors in the environment. Okay, so in the skin, there are a lot of what they call sensory nerve receptors. All right, one of those is the thermoreceptors. Right, so okay, next one is the there's also what they call photoreceptors. So we cannot find photoreceptors in the skin. Instead, this is located on the eye. Alright, so the thermoreceptors are located on the skin, so which detects changes in temperature. Next one, the chemoreceptors. Some of these are located in the located on the skin. Alright, the tongue. Alright, the nose. Okay, so basically, these receptors are for chemical stimuli, right? So change or anything about the chemistry of the food that you eat, the chemistry of the odor that you smell, yan. So these are the chemoreceptors. Next one, the mechanoreceptors responds to pressure that is detected by these receptors. For example, these receptors are found mostly on the skin, right? And also, together with these receptors that we have right here, is what they call nociceptors. So this is the kind of receptors that send signals to the brain, which be able us to what they call perceive what they call pain. Alright, so pain is very important. It's not just it tells our body that we are threatened. So when there's pain, it tells us it is connected to what they call survivability of the organism. Right? So pain is always related to the survival of the organism. So pain is very important. Alright, so these are the receptors found in the peripheral nervous system. Okay, so as you can see here, so there are different types of receptors that we have right here. So this thing that we have right here, this is what they call the nociceptors. So these are receptors which is composed of 3 nerve endings, and these receptors are very sensitive to any mechanical aspect of stimuli like pressure, temperature changes, and other stuffs. Alright, so the one that we have right here is somehow it's like a chemoreceptor, something like that. So in the nose or in the tongue, there is what they call the olfactory nerves. Yan. So it contains a lot of receptors that looks like this. Alright, in the eyes, there is a receptor that look like this. Okay, so mainly each and every chemoreceptor or each and every receptors that we talked about earlier has different shapes, right? So they are not the same after all. Okay, so that is what the receptors here is all about. Okay, so next one. So these receptors perform what they call a reflex action. So okay, so what happens here is, for example, the eye be able to see a stimuli, which is the water over here. Okay, so what will be the response? So the water, okay, so the eye will send information, and the sensory neuron is connected to an interneuron, so which is found in the spinal cord. So mainly this thing that we have right here is the spinal cord. Alright, so the spinal cord will do its reflex action. So this is a type of action that doesn't require any conscious thought. Okay, so the spinal cord will do immediate action on that particular situation. For example, the water is, or the liquid inside this glass is hot somehow. Okay, so what will happen is it will activate the motor neuron, so the one that we have right here. This motor neuron will activate the muscle. So it's either it will the hands will release the glass, so that your hands will not be burned by the will be the hot temperature or hot temperature of your drinks that we have right here. All right, so it will instruct the muscles in your arm to release the glass, so that you will not be able to be burned by that certain stimuli. Alright, so that is the reflex arc. So now that's the immediate action. So what we have right here, so in what way that the message will go to the brain. So after the reflex arc, there are messages that will go to the, or there are impulse that will go to the brain. So first thing is it will arrive to the brainstem. It will arrive to the brainstem, and there's a part in your brain that sorts out this sensory data. All right, so we called it the thalamus. Alright, so the thalamus serves as the hub that distributes this particular sensory data to any part of the brain that requires that kind of integration. For example, in this case, you feel that the drink or the liquid inside this glass is hot. Alright, so the thalamus will send information to the somatosensory cortex so that you will be able to perceive pain. Alright, so for example, I touch an object which is hot, and my immediate response is you will say ouch or something like that. So the word ouch means that you perceive pain. Alright, so after that one, there is also a signal that will go to the frontal lobe. Alright, so the frontal lobe will think further, who is the one who put a liquid or a hot liquid inside the glass. All right, so next one. So these are the probable, or these are the function of your brain after the reflex arc. And then after that, so immediate action of the brain, it will integrate those information and then go back to the certain body part that requires that particular action. So mainly, most of them is the motor neuron, which is connected to this muscle, and the muscle will do its function. So you will now release the glass because it is hot. Alright, so this is what they call the step-by-step process called the reflex arc. Okay, so that is in the peripheral nervous system. Again, the first one happens in the spinal cord. So not only the spinal cord, but also the brain can do cranial reflexes. For example, there's a small object that goes inside your nose. So your brain will do an immediate function on that without any conscious thought. So you will likely to sneeze. Alright, whenever there's a small object that goes inside your nose. Alright, so in this case, if the stimuli happens in the lower extremities of the body, the spinal cord will do the action. Alright, so this is the first one. And the second one is the integration of your brain in that process. Alright, so basically this is what they call the reflex action. Okay, so here we go. Alright, so that's all about the peripheral nervous system and how they work. Alright, so it is made up of several receptors that we discussed earlier, and those receptors are very important in gathering information about the environment. So without them, basically the central nervous system will be useless. All right, so without those receptors, or basically without the peripheral nervous system, central nervous system will be useless. All right, so with that, let's go now to the parts of the one group in the peripheral nervous system, which is under the motor division, called the autonomic nervous system. So why do we need to discuss the autonomic nervous system? Because some of these parts under the autonomic is somehow very important in terms of how they function, right? So the somatic nervous system, it is very straightforward that this particular group that are under the motor division is very these particular organs are voluntary, which means these organs are controlled by conscious thought. All right, so by your own will. All right, so example of this voluntary organs or in the body is the skeletal muscles. All right, the skeletal muscles, which is located in our arm, in our legs. Yan. So these muscles are voluntary muscles. It doesn't require any, or it requires any a conscious thought in order for you to move these particular organs. Alright, so with that, let's go now to the autonomic nervous system. Now, what is the function of this group of what is the function of the autonomic nervous system? So the autonomic nervous system regulates the body's processes. Alright, so it regulates the body's processes such as blood pressure, the rate of breathing, and from the word itself, autonomic, which means automatic. All right, so or independent. All right, so this system is independent over the somatic ones because autonomously it controls the organs that organ that is needed for certain body processes, and as it controls the organ, it controls it without any conscious effort. Alright, so you don't need to think when to digest the food. You don't need to think when to contract or relax your heart. You don't need to think when to breathe. Yan. So, all those functions are controlled autonomously by this group of nervous system, or by this group of motor nerves called the autonomic nervous system. All right. So, basically, the autonomic nervous system is divided into two. We have the parasympathetic division and the sympathetic division of the autonomic nervous system. So, basically, they are different in terms of how they control organs. So, as you can see in this sympathetic division, so if you take a look at these nerves that is on the sympathetic division, the nerves are located somewhere in the middle of your spinal cord. So, these particular nerves are called alright, so these nerves are located in the thorax. Alright, so thoracolumbar part of your spinal cord. So, as you can see, this particular part is located in the thoracolumbar region of your spinal cord. So, as you can see, the nerves are connected to the eyes, to some endocrine organs, the heart, to the lungs, to the stomach, liver, also with the adrenal glands over here. Then we have the bladder, and also in some reproductive or in reproductive system. Alright, so in some reproductive organ. So these are what they called your the sympathetic division. Meanwhile, on the other hand, the parasympathetic division is also connected to the same part to which the sympathetic nerves are also connected. Alright, so but the thing there is, as you can see, this is the opposite. Alright, so this is the opposite of what is happening on the sympathetic division. So if in the sympathetic division it dilates the pupil, in the parasympathetic it constricts the pupil. Alright, so and everything here, alright, every organ that is controlled by the parasympathetic division is the movement is opposite to the one that is on the sympathetic division. Alright, so if the sympathetic nerves are in the thoracolumbar part of the spinal cord, the sympathetic division is located on the craniosacral part. So, sorry for that. Craniosacral region of the spinal cord. So when we talk about cranium, means near the skull. So it is on the top part of the body. So this is the cranial nerves, and also on the on the sacral part. So on the last or end part of the spinal cord, yan, so which is called the sacral nerves, yan. So that is why it is called the craniosacral nerves. All right, so that's the main difference between parasympathetic and sympathetic division. Basically, the sympathetic division is used during the fight or flight situation. And meanwhile, the parasympathetic division is the calmer side of what is happening on the sympathetic division. It allows your body to be calm after certain emergency. Alright, so that is the two divisions of the autonomic nervous system. Okay, so in the autonomic nervous system, it receives information about the body and the external environment, just like what the peripheral nerves do, basically. Then it responds by stimulating the body's processes, usually through the sympathetic division, or inhibiting them, usually through the parasympathetic division. So, another keyword for this one. Now, in order for you not to forget what is the function of the sympathetic division, always look forward that always remember that the sympathetic division stimulates the body, and the parasympathetic division inhibits all the processes that is done by the sympathetic division. All right, so that is the function of your autonomic nervous system. Alright, so as you can see here, this is the difference between excuse me. So as you can see here, this is the difference between the somatic and the autonomic, and also this is the difference between the parasympathetic nerves and the sympathetic nerves that we have right here. Alright, let's take a look first the opposite. Let's take a look at the opposite of the autonomic nervous system, which is the somatic nervous system. Alright, so as you can see here, this is a typical motor neuron. So it is heavily myelinated, so meaning to say it is insulated. Alright, so this particular neuron is insulated, and the only neurotransmitter that can travel this neuron is the acetylcholine, which triggers the effector organs, or the skeletal muscle. All right, so the only effect of this neurotransmitter is to stimulate this muscle, the skeletal muscle. All right, so to stimulate the skeletal muscle in order for you to do such different movements. All right, so that's the reason why it is called the voluntary part of the nervous system, the somatic nervous system. Alright, so if you take a closer look at the neurons between autonomic and peripheral, or the somatic nervous system, as you can see, they are very different, because in the somatic nervous system, it is consists of one neuron only. Alright, in the autonomic nervous system, most of the time, they are made up of 1 and 2 neurons, right, that are connected together in a place called ganglion. Alright, so now what is the difference? Alright, now let's go now to the difference between parasympathetic and sympathetic nerves. Alright, let's start first with the sympathetic nerves. Alright, so in the sympathetic nerve, so as I've said earlier, it is connected to the thoracolumbar part of your spinal cord. So these particular nerves are lightly myelinated compared to their brother, which is the somatic nervous system. This is lightly myelinated. So in terms of insulation, this is heavily, or the somatic nervous system is heavily insulated than the sympathetic ones. Alright, so as you can see, this neuron here, this neuron that we have right here, the preganglionic axon, is connected to postganglionic axon, which is unmyelinated. Alright, so, and in terms of neurotransmitter, so we have here what they call the NE, which means the norepinephrine. Alright, so norepinephrine is the one that stimulates the smooth muscles to contract and relax. Alright, so smooth muscles are not like skeletal muscle. Smooth muscles are involuntary form of muscles. Alright, so they are found in digestive organs like the stomach, the intestines, and other stuffs. Alright, and also the norepinephrine, or we called it adrenaline, or it is related to adrenaline somehow. Alright, so this particular neurotransmitter also activates another kind of involuntary muscle called cardiac muscles. Alright, so the cardiac muscles. And this neurotransmitter has an effect of stimulatory or inhibitory, depending on what kind of division of the autonomic nervous system that will function. Now, so let's take a look at the parasympathetic division of the autonomic nervous system. As you can see, it is also made up of lightly myelinated preganglionic axons. Alright, so the one that we have right here. And also, they are connected to a portion or a place called the ganglion, where a bunch of cell bodies and an axon is connected. And also, the second neuron is unmyelinated. But this parasympathetic nervous or parasympathetic group secretes or delivers acetylcholine as its neurotransmitter. So what it does is this acetylcholine will inhibit whatever is stimulated by the sympathetic division of the nervous system. Okay, so let's take a look at the neuron. So as you can see here, the sympathetic nerves, since they are near the organs, all right, so since they are near the organs, so the one that is connected to the spinal cord, this one, this thing right here, yan, the one that is connected on the spinal cord is shorter, and the one that is connected on the organs, this one, the one that we have right here, so is longer than the first one. Okay, so that's one difference, or that's a signature thing, or that's the keyword, or that's the pattern that you will see here in the sympathetic division. Now, meanwhile, in the parasympathetic division, as you can see, since this group or these nerves are connected, or are so far from the organs that they are connected, so the first neuron, the one that we have right here, is longer than the second one. Alright? So the first neuron, or the first neuron that we have right here, is actually actually they are long enough to reach those organs, and they do need short secondary neuron, alright, secondary neuron, just to reach those organs. So meaning to say that this neuron that we have right here, this one, is somehow connected to a particular organ. For example, the blood vessels, the smooth muscles found in the digestive system, and also the heart muscles. Alright, so again, the difference between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nerves is, in the sympathetic, the first neuron, the preganglionic axon, is longer. Alright, so in the parasympathetic, right? So why is it longer? Because these particular neurons are far away from the organs that they need to connect with. Alright, so in the sympathetic nervous system, in the sympathetic division, alright, so since they are near the organs that they are connecting with, so they do need the preganglionic axon to be shorter. Meanwhile, in the postganglionic axon, which is the second neuron, in the sympathetic division, it is longer than the parasympathetic ones, because, alright, so because this the sympathetic nerves are near the organs, so which means that they do need longer connections with the organs that they need to control. All right, so the one that we have right here, and also the neurotransmitter that they secrete is what they call the norepinephrine. All right, so which stimulates these muscles. Okay. Right, so, and also in the parasympathetic one, so the neurotransmitter that is secreted by this group is acetylcholine, that inhibits, this is the negative one, the one that we have right here, this inhibits all the muscles that is controlled by the sympathetic division. So meaning to say, they work in opposite. Okay, so with that, this is the differences between the autonomic and somatic motor systems, and also this is the differences between the parasympathetic division and the sympathetic division of the autonomic nervous system. Alright, so please do remember that in autonomic nervous system, it always requires two nerve cells that are connected to each other, and one is connected to the brainstem or spinal cord, and the other one is connected to the organs. So please do take note that one. So again, the first nerve cells is connected to the brainstem or spinal cord. Always, alright? So it doesn't matter how long or how short that nerve is. What is important here, it is connected always to the brainstem or the spinal cord. Now, the second nerve is always connected to the organs that they control. The point in which these two nerves are connected is called the ganglion. All right, so yeah, so Please do take note that the autonomic nervous system requires two nerve cells. They do not work with one nerve cells. All right, so that's the reason why they are called autonomic, or they are belong to the autonomic nervous system. Okay. Now, what are the function of the autonomic nervous system? So mainly the one that we have right here, it controls the blood pressure. Right, so this is a body processes. Now, if you don't control the blood pressure autonomously, so what will happen to the organism? It will die. All right, so control the heart and breathing rates. All right, so next one, the body temperature. All right, so next one, also the digestion. It is controlled by the autonomic nervous system. Next one, the metabolism. All right, is controlled by the autonomic nervous system. And we have the control of water and electrolytes in the body. So there's a part of the autonomic nervous system that controls that one. Also, with the secretion of some fluids in our body like saliva, sweat, and tears is controlled by autonomic nervous system. Urination, defecation, and sexual response. Alright, so the manner on how these body processes are controlled by the autonomic nervous system depends on the situation. Alright, so if there's an emergency situation, some of these body processes are shut down to give way to other priorities like sugar need by the muscle. Alright, so something like that. Okay, so there are some body processes that are hindered. For example, during an emergency, urination is somewhat halted for a temporary period of time to give way to other processes so that it will not intervene whatever emergency situation your body is undergoing with. Alright, so also the sexual response is controlled by the autonomic nervous system. Alright, so before I forget, the neurotransmitter, the norepinephrine that we have right here, so the NE, can be a neurotransmitter or can be a hormone, depending. Alright, so this norepinephrine that we have right here can be a neurotransmitter or can be a hormone. Right, so what's the difference? So it depends on what organ and what function this one is needed to do on that organ. So that's the difference. So we have the neurotransmitter and the hormone nature of your norepinephrine. Alright, next one. Okay, so this is the summary of every function, alright, that the autonomic nervous system or body process that the autonomic nervous system control. Alright, so let's start first with the sympathetic one. So as you can see here, so during the emergency process, so for example, there is a fire breakout in your place. Okay, so what you will need there is the sympathetic division of the autonomic nervous system. So your eyes will dilate to allow more light to enter. Alright, so your liver will be stimulated. Right, so your liver will be stimulated to secrete glucose so that your body or the muscles of your body will be in constant function or constant motion. Alright, so for that particular emergency situation. So if a fire breaks out, your appliances, how heavy it is, you will be able to carry those appliances for in safety area so that it will not catch fire. Next one, in the digestive system, gastric juices are inhibited for a temporary period of time so that no digestion process that will happen during that emergency. So meaning to say that the sympathetic division of the nervous system controls the digestion. So there will be no digestion process. And also it controls the urinary bladder muscles so that you will not be able to urinate during an emergency. So if you happen to experience this one, if you are in a particular presentation or some events that require you to present, when you feel fear or something like when you are how do we call that one? Yeah. When you feel fear, all right, during that particular event, so when you tend to urinate, or when you tend to urinate during that particular event, so when you start presenting during that process, at first your body will feel your body will like to urinate, but during the presentation your body will not be able to urinate because the sympathetic division controls the urinary bladder muscles. All right, also the sphincter is also controlled. Also the heart muscles is controlled. Yeah. So as you can see here in this particular control by the sympathetic division, it is for emergency. So as you can see, the motion of your organs, or the movement of the organs here, is relatively for emergency. Now meanwhile, on the other hand, in the parasympathetic simulation or parasympathetic division, what it does is it controls, or it goes back, or it allows your body to go back again to calmer state. Alright, so it allows the body to go back again to calmer state so that your body will not lose energy through this particular process done by the sympathetic division. Alright, so it is harmful that, it is harmful that sometimes if this is too much, yeah, all the things that happens here in the sympathetic division, if it happens too much, it is somewhat harmful. So it must be maintained, it must go back again to its normal state by the parasympathetic division. So as you can see, the movement here are opposites of the other one. All right, so basically that's the autonomic nervous system, sympathetic and parasympathetic division. All right, so in summary, the one that we have right here, so this is the parasympathetic. I will repeat. So it controls the body, or it makes the body calm after an emergency. All right, so the movement done by the sympathetic nervous system is opposite to the movement done by the organs in the parasympathetic division of the nervous system, autonomic nervous system. And also in terms of their connection, the parasympathetic is located on the craniosacral part of the spinal cord. Meanwhile, the sympathetic ones is located on the thoracolumbar part of the spinal cord. Alright, so with that, okay, so what did you learn? What you have learned today? So you have learned about the peripheral nervous system. The peripheral nervous system is the one, or is the window of our body to the environment. Without the peripheral nervous system, your central nervous system will be useless. And we also learned that the peripheral nervous system is divided into afferent and efferent divisions. So mainly the sensory and then the motor divisions of the peripheral nervous system. And also, you learned about how information is obtained by the sensory receptors and how the body responds to a certain pain that we have encountered. Alright, so I will repeat, pain is very important because it tells us if we are threatened. Alright, so it is connected always to survival of the organism. Alright, so we talked about the... Alright, so in this particular lesson, so we included also the reflex arc. So before I forget, there are two kinds of reflex. So we have the innate reflex and we have... Alright, so we have the learned... Yan. So we have the learned reflex. Alright, so when we talk about innate reflex, these are reflexes that are controlled by the spinal cord, which produce immediate actions to certain stimuli. Alright, for example, you touch an object which is hot, so your immediate action there is to remove your hand. Alright, now there is what they call a learned reflex. These are reflex that are from the word itself, learned. These are reflex that are motions that are learned over time through practice. For example, playing a piano, doing some sports like basketballs and other stuffs. Yan. And other related activities. So when we talk about learned reflex, so these are reflexes that are obtained through practice, and that allows your body to move unconsciously to certain activities. All right, so next one, there are also, we have learned about in this discussion the basic two parts of the autonomic nervous system. We have the parasympathetic ones and then the sympathetic division of it. And also, at the last part of this lesson, you know the difference between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic divisions by looking at its nerve fibers on how they are connected, where they are connected, and for what purpose that they do on a particular organ. So with that, I hope you did learn something about this particular discussion. If you do have questions, don't forget to write it down in the comment section of this video. So with that, so don't forget to smile, alright, and that's it for this particular lesson. Thank you and have a good day.